I don't know what happened. I hit the button. We were live.
Oh, we're live now.
Okay. All right, everybody, hold tight because we seem to have a StreamYard error. And we were live, but now we're not live, but now we're live. So let me ask everybody in the chat, are we live now? Please respond. We will pick up. We're good. Now I can hear myself again.
I think we're fine though, Grant, because it says watching now. It did say waiting before, but yeah, everybody in the chat, tell us everybody's saying we're on now.
Oh, wait a minute.
Let's start it again. And let's go to Todd again.
Hold on, give me a second. I'm in a feedback loop. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the thrill of being live. You never know what's going to happen.
Do you have a window open again?
I don't know.
Other window?
Hold on. Let me look at my settings real quick.
Okay, why don't you work on solving that while we go to Todd, because everybody's sounding good and I think the audio is all good. So,
all right, Todd.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to check with.
Sorry, everybody, but this is what happens.
All right, my apologies if you've already seen this.
I don't think we have.
I'm going to start with ABC Beauty Stab. Their first album, kind of an elegant cover there, and kind of elegant, sophisticated pop from them. And then you get this album right here, second album. They lost their drummer. They used an Andee Newmark, famous session drummer. So a little bit heavier style from him. Some of their song titles, Bite the Hand and Beauty Stab, or a little indicate kind of a change. It's been described as kind of like a slightly heavier and slightly more stripped down version of Roxy Music. That's kind of what you see in the picture there. And so if anybody hasn't never heard this album, definitely check it out. It's definitely different from what you might think it is. Lindsey Buckingham, Gift of Screws. His album before that was Under the Skin, which was, even though that cover sort of looks kind of brooding on that one too. But this is a lighter, more I don't want to say more melodic, but definitely more acoustic album. And it was followed by this one. There's lots of really intricate playing, bordering on prog. There's super distorted guitars, things like that. So I kind of feel like that kind of tells you this is not a light album. And then Dream Theater, Train of Thought. I had a hard time with this one because I did not want a heavier Dream Theater, but a lot of people did. And you can definitely see with that front cover art there and the back cover art even. There's one ballad on this album. It kind of feels like they're kind of saying, hey, here's your ballad, you wuss. But otherwise, pretty dark, heavy album. It looks like it too.
Yeah. And just to butt in, just to explain what we're doing here. So the idea is that essentially these are album covers that show some sort of change in the musical direction in the band, or maybe there's different members or whatever, but we're getting some sort of signal from that front cover that this band is doing something different. This was an idea of Jamie's. And take it away, Jamie. Give us your first three.
All right.
My first two are two bands that I knew of, but recently got into. The last 6 years or so, I've been buying their albums, and that is Uriah Heep and Budgie. And I'm going with Abominamog by Uriah Heep and Power Supply by Budgie, whichever one you want to put up first there, Grant. Here's the thing with these two albums. So going into buying the albums, I was watching Sea of Tranquility, Mr. Peter Pardo over there. And he was ranking the albums because you want to know where you want to start. And when he got to this one, he goes, yeah, this is when they started doing more traditional new wave of British heavy metal. And I was like, no shit. I can tell by the damn cover. You got the mascot there. Exactly. They're going into the 80s. They got their little Eddie going. Yeah, they're trying to dive into that pool. And then when you go to Budgie Power Supply, and I watched his ranking on that, and he said, yeah, that's when they go into more traditional new wave of British heavy metal. I said, again, no shit. I can tell by the cover. You got your little mascot. It's called Power Supply, so we're going to give you more blazing electricity and electric guitars. And I think it's a little message on there saying, look, we want to be rock stars too. You know, we know how to play instruments. Why can't we be up on the stage like this to a big crowd? We can do it too. So going into that, I brought this up before, but I'm going to talk about it again. Oh, nope, sorry. I'm going to go with Oingo Boingo, which I actually brought up not too long ago on disturbing album covers. So Oingo Boingo has always had dark lyrics, but the music has been fun, and the album covers have been kind of colorful and fun. Then you get into 1990, and things look just a little darker, but still kind of a fun album. Then comes 1993, boom. We are not Oingo Boingo anymore because that sounds a little silly. Now we're just Boingo. And very dark, very disturbing, this very dark sounding music, longer songs, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, 16 minutes, Oingo Boingo, Boingo. So yeah, and even the first song comes in and it's the dark sounding Batman theme that Danny Elfman wrote, and the Batman theme swirling in and out of the song. So yeah, you knew it was going to be a change.
Nice. Yeah, and with those two new wave of British heavy metal ones, you get into illustration for the first time. Too. Well, not for the first time with those bands, but you definitely see that. And it's interesting. They both got monsters on the covers. They didn't carry that on. Right. But that Heap one is just so notorious because the album is not like that at all. It's actually, they're actually kind of AOR-ish new wave of British heavy metal, right? But it is a good, exciting album. Going over to our comments, we've got a mention from Pete Brown for Voivod Nothing Face. I'm going to be talking about Voivod shortly. Let's see, we've got Scorpions Blackout. Let's see, Queen the Game, Opeth Watershed. I don't know. Some of these I would disagree. They really signal change. We've got David Bothas saying Duke by Genesis. Let's see, Rush Power Windows. I don't know if that's too different, or Metallica Black Album. Iron Maiden Peace of Mind, etc. But I don't know if you guys are getting this concept yet.
Yeah, I don't think so.
You'll catch on as we move on here, as we go halfway around the world to Australia. Let's have Peter Kerr tell us his picks.
Yeah, Peter Kerr's up next. But everybody, you'll get the concept here as we keep going. We had a shaky start in the beginning, but that's the thrill of being live, and we're riding the wave here. So yeah, Peter Kerr, go ahead. I'm ready for you.
All right, Van Halen, 5150. So we all know what happened. David Lee's gone, and you've got Sammy Hagar in the band. And when we saw the album cover, when it comes up.
There you go. Sorry.
Right. To me, it signified change because you had those previous just simple Van Halen logos. This to me was something very shiny, very corporate, an entity that's bigger than the band itself. This album cover sort of signifies that they were going for a broader mass sound, and they basically wanted to take over the world. So to me, even though there were hard rockers and there's a little bit of muscle in the album, there was certainly a lot of more AOR tendencies, and they wanted that broader audience, which was more prevalent. So it not only signaled what was happening on that album, but it was signaling what was going to happen in future albums like OU812. But to me, you look at that VH, the ball, it's like the Daily Planet. It's like they are just being huge corporate, just a huge entity beyond the four of them.
Nice.
So the next one I'm going to go for is Bon Jovi Crossroads. Now you're going, why is Peter Kerr picking a greatest hits album? Well, first and foremost, this is the most depressing greatest hits album cover I've ever seen in my life. They should be celebrating. So you got Bon Jovi reading the paper and all the guys behind him looking really dark and morose. To me, this signals what's going to happen in Bon Jovi in the later part of the 90s. There's alternative music, there's grunge music. They have to change their sound. They will have to demetalize any of their recordings. So any of that sheen that was in the early Bon Jovi will be gone. And this album had a couple of bonus tracks on it that Someday I'll Be With You Saturday Night. It was like country. They had a revamped version of Prayer. called just Prayer 94, which was sort of like completely stripped back. So this album, this greatest hits album cover was signifying that they were just going to completely change their style and keep up with the times. But to me, it's the most depressing greatest hits album cover I've ever seen, because they should be celebrating and they're not. They're just being really introspective.
Yeah, that is a weird one. Huh. That's crazy.
And change of pace, PJ Harvey. This is called Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea.
Yeah, if I could only get it up.
Don't
There it
say
is.
that
Sorry.
sentence, Grant.
My God, I am off my game tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It happens. I can't
all right.
perform top notch every day.
Oh, it keeps coming. Or does it?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. PJ, her previous album covers were kind of grungy, alternative. This one is this album cover signifies I'm getting out and about, I'm getting a bit glam, and this album is sort of expanding to the masses. It's my most commercial album, and it actually was. So, I'm getting out on the town, I'm getting out and about and just exploring, getting a bit more expansive. So I love PJ Harvey, love it a bits. And, out of all her catalog, if you looked at that album cover, you'd probably say, hey, that's the commercial one if you had to choose. So that's my three.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right.
super.
Let's just take a look over to the comments here, see if people are catching on here. We've got Beastie Boys, Check Your Head. Kiss wanted Lick It Up to signal a change. Well, okay, so that one does signal a change nicely. Beatles, Sgt. Pepper definitely signals a change. That's a good one, as is, their Satanic Majesty's request, I guess. Metallica, Load. Yeah, I've got a few in here that show just the whole metal aesthetic changing in the 90s, right? Soundgarden, Down on the Upside. I don't know if that one completely. Anthrax, State of Euphoria. I saw you mention that one, Brian. To me, it's more like after Persistence of Time, you see the difference, because the first ones are all illustration. They're all heavy metal illustration and all that. But all right. So my first choice is the Boomtown Rats. So, you start off with this one. It's all green and gray and black and white and monochrome. And Bob Geldof's all wrapped up there. I guess it looks pretty punky. Maybe they look pretty punky on the back too. But the point is, I remember getting into the store and seeing this. Oh, great, a new Boomtown Rats album. And look at the guys down here. 2 acoustic guitars. That's a banjo, I guess. Yeah, he's got a banjo. There is a bass. There's a tiger. I don't know how he's going to play the tiger. There's a snare drum. So I guess they're a skiffle band now. And on the back, they're looking like that. So, yeah, it was pretty obvious that this was not going to be the good old heavy punk rock of the debut. And it certainly wasn't. This was a much poppier album. So that absolutely signaled change. Even before, I got this home and took the cellophane off, I knew we were in for trouble here. And I almost didn't buy it based on that. I mean, we got a guy playing the saxophone back here as well. So the next one, kind of similar, but was surprised by this one. Stars Attention Shoppers. So the front cover, I suppose, doesn't particularly signal change. But, if you're in the record store, you can flip it over and see the back. And gone is the heavy rock and all in black look for this kind of look here. We've got, I think that's Richie back there in a ball cap. And they're all just looking kind of like yacht rockers and just playing it up and looking all poppy and happy. And then get this album home, and we were very upset. Oddly enough, same year as Boomtown Rats, 1978. Yeah, very upset at that album because it wasn't very heavy, although it had 2 of their greatest songs on it, Good Ale We Seek and X-Ray Specs. And then the next one is, yes, we've got 90125 here. So this is what they changed into, but of course they were coming from the likes of, we've got... Yes Shows here, which looks like your typical Yes album with a Roger Dean illustration, right? And we've got Yes Drama, same sort of thing. This is kind of like a modern Roger Dean, but different band lineup. Bunch of years go by, right? And then, yeah, we get this clean, sleek corporate look for the 80s and a much more, accomplished, professional, modern sort of sound. Owner of a Lonely. That album cover basically sounds like the first 10 seconds of Owner of a Lonely Heart, right? And then, the attendant graphics, there's your Owner of a Lonely Heart, same kind of look. And then even into the next album, you get your Rhythm of Love. So it's all looking very graphic like this for the next couple of albums. Big change in the band's sound. Of course, Trevor Rabin's the big difference. But yeah, so are the album graphics as well. So that's my first three. Take it away, Grant.
All right. I just want to say about that Yes album. When that came out back in the day, I totally embraced it. I was a big Yes fan. Yep. But a lot of people, they were alienated by it, but I thought it was great. I still think it's great. Ray and Kelly might be flipping around, but I'm just telling you, I still like this record.
I was happy because I thought Yes broke up.
Right.
So
and then they're back.
I had a Yes album in my hand. I was happy.
And when you're a kid, you're sitting there. Well, I wasn't exactly a kid. I was like 18 or something, but I was into it. I loved it. All right, everybody. So sorry about the technical problems. I am a human. But my first choice, we're going to go back to the 60s for God's sakes. And I'm going to go with the Monkees Headquarters album from 1967. Now, what this indicates to me, if anybody knows the Monkees, and they might not know the Monkees so much on this channel, but this was the first album that they produced where they recorded everything themselves. They felt repressed. They wanted to express themselves. So they got a producer, and they produced this record. So what this shows me on the cover is unity. It's like, look at them. They're all together. They're holding hands. They're like a team. And when you listen to the record, and if you know the background of it, then you'll totally get it. Of course, this didn't last long because Pisces, the next record, well, they were all using studio musicians again. But this pretty much is all the Monkees playing on this record. So when I see this, I think fresh, unity, blah, blah, blah. The next one I've got is the Hollies, Evolution in 1967. So what this tells me, if anybody knows the Hollies, they were pretty much just a singles band in the 60s. As with everything else, psychedelia is coming up. If you look at this album cover, oh my God, this is psychedelic. And this is what represents to me is that the Hollies are saying, hey, we've arrived. We are psychedelic. We're hip. We're not just that singles band. We're not doing Bus Stop. We've went into a different area. So, but yeah.
Bus Stop's a good song.
Well, all the Hollies singles were great. They were pretty much a singles band. I will go on record to say if you like the Hollies singles, all you pretty much need is a greatest hits compilation. They weren't really an album band, but this is getting towards that. Great. It's still a great record. I love this record. But, after this, Graham Nash left to go to Crosby, Stills and Nash. So it is that. All right. The next pick I've got is Night Ranger feeding.
Peter, you might want to hit your mute again there.
Yeah, damn birds. Anyway, Night Ranger feeding off the mojo. So this is the album from 1995. There was a span in between where they had broken up pretty much. They got back together. This has no Jack Blades, no Alan Fitzgerald on it. It's just Brad Willis, some guy playing bass, and brain problem. Carrie, help me. Who's the drummer?
Oh, I can picture him, but I can't think of his name.
Shit, you guys, damn it, you guys are no help. But I'm getting ready. I'm going to be on Sea of Tranquility Saturday, so I'm all worked up with Night Ranger. So
I've never even seen that cover before. I'm surprised.
I had no idea that existed.
Well, there you go. This is why it's here. It is an outlier. It is an album that signaled change. So we've got basically a different band. This only lasted for one album, but look at the cover. This doesn't look cheap. It looks cheap. Well, they didn't have any money. They were on Drive, whatever label that is. The Night Ranger logo's all compressed. That's bad. We've got this guy doing, I don't know what he's exactly doing, but it doesn't look like anything that came before. So this is basically saying, hey, look, kids, it's Night Ranger, but we're totally a different band. So I don't know. Stay tuned to Sea of Tranquility. I think that'll air on Sunday, so you can see what Pete and I rank. It's all about putting the plug. I feel like Rand Kelly, for God's sakes. But anyway, so there you go. That's my number 3.
All right. Todd, go ahead.
Okay, so for the next pick, and I'm going to go with Queen the Works. And I know you're probably thinking, yeah, Queen's on like the cover of almost all their albums. So what's different about this? All right, so go backwards. Hot Space. That is a big change. All right, that's different from what everybody expected. The one before it, Queen of the Game, yeah, they're on it, and yeah, they're black and white, but it's that theme picture where they've got the slick back hair, like they're in from the Crazy Little Thing Called Love video. The thing about the Works is that, by the way, cover shot by photographer George Hurrell. At the time, he was very hot. He shot Press to Play by Paul McCartney, Mid-Year, The Gift, Fleetwood Mac Mirage. So if you think about those, this was a look that a lot of people were doing. But this is just Queen in black and white with really harsh shadows. They're not trying to be silly. They look kind of serious. And basically what they did on this album, in my opinion, is they went really back to basics. There's some innovative stuff on here. I mean, it starts with Radio Gaga, and then there's Machines Back to Humans. But this record has 2 pretty hard rock songs on it. It has Tear It Up and Hammer to Fall. It's got a Bohemian Rhapsody / Play the Game song called It's a Hard Life. It's got a Man on the Prowl, which is almost just like a Crazy Little Thing Called Love. It's like Crazy Little Thing Called Love light. But I think what they were trying to do here was they were trying to say, yeah, we did this, but we're going to go back to being Queen. And so I think that's kind of what that looks like when I see this. So that's Queen the Works.
But Todd, I have to intervene because I can't help myself.
Yes.
But this is where Queen tried to be Queen, and they're like a self-parody of what they had before.
Yeah,
Hot Space was the last real Queen album because they weren't trying to do, they're just being what they were doing. This is like, oh, well, we better fix this.
That's what I feel too. And when I heard this album, it was kind of like one of those careful what you wish for things, because it was like after Hot Space, you kind of wish Queen would be Queen again, and then Queen's Queen, like in a really we're Queen kind of a way that.
But we're trying to be Queen.
Oh, well, I don't want that either. So it's like, yeah, I agree. I actually think Hot Space is the better of the 2 records, but that's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show, but I totally get what you're saying. But
so next I'm going to talk, and I'm going to talk about REM. And with REM, the obvious one would have been Monster, and that's a good one. But I didn't pick that because at the time Monster came out, 2 years prior, Peter Buck was saying, we're going to make a noisy rock and roll album. We're going to make a noisy rock and roll album. And so when their next album came out, it was Automatic for the People. And people were like, where's the noisy rock and roll album? So when Monster came out, everybody kind of really expected it. But this is Accelerate. Pardon the McKay's sticker on there. This is Accelerate from 2008. The album before that is Around the Sun, looking kind of, pastel, kind of impressionistic there. And this is a much heavier record. It's a much more rock and roll record. It's short. I think it's 32 minutes long. I mean, you can look at the back cover, and it does not look like it's a AOR kind of a REM album. I like the REM albums before this one. Most people don't. But again, another show. But but yeah, that one definitely signaled when you saw this. It was like, okay, this is not going to be like the one before it. Produced by Jack Lee, which is a big change for them. And then speaking of people that keep talking about how their next album is going to be different, this is Identity from Riverside. And Marius Duda, the main guy in this band, has talked about this before it came out. And he's still talking about how it's not what you expect from Riverside. It's not pastoral. It's not acoustic. It's not melancholic. And he's right about that. But it's definitely, it's got more pop elements to it. It doesn't have a ballad on it. It's got some atmospheric things that appear in longer tracks. And the album before that was post-apocalyptic, and the album cover before that was impressionistic. And so this one here is one of those ones where you look at it and you go, whoa, that's going to be different. And he said it was going to be different. And I didn't think I wanted that because I liked the albums before this one, but it's very, very good. And it really
they don't have their logo on there.
Yeah, it doesn't have their logo on it. It really although I think they probably could have used the logo on that. But it delivers on its promise of this is different, but I think you'll still like it.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. All right, Jamie, take it away.
All right, I'm going with, I brought this up before too, but I'll go into it just a little bit more. One of the first death metal bands, Death. First 3 album covers, very cartoonish, very more or less straightforward, kind of raw death metal. And then you get to the 4th album, Human, and something's different, isn't it? They're very more progressive, more mature. There's melodies hidden within the music. And I watched a documentary on this band, and Chuck Schuldiner, the leader of the band, said when they got to this point, he was a little pissed that he named his band Death, because at this point they're making serious music, but the band name seemed a little bit too silly for the music. So, and going from that one, what's next on my list? I don't want to screw you up, Grant.
No. I've already screwed up enough tonight.
I know. All right,
you can't screw me up anymore.
I'm going to go with Black Crowes. So Black Crowes release Shake Your Moneymaker, right? A bunch of kids on the cover, basically. And it's called Shake Your Moneymaker. Woohoo, going to be a good time. Very next album, something's a little different. We went from Shake Your Moneymaker to the Southern Harmony and Musical Companion. What the hell? And everybody looks like they aged about 10 years, even though it was like 2 years. And everyone's
they all look like they're strung out on heroin.
Yeah, but they're dressed a little differently. They're giving you that look. You're looking at the song titles, and you just know you're getting a much more mature.
Doesn't that cover look like the cover of the band, The Band?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I think you can see all the band members on the band, though.
Doppelganger.
Sure. And then next, I'm going to go with Alice Cooper. Now, we all know Alice Cooper went through his hair metal days.
Yeah.
There you go with all the hair metal. And then in 91, he did Hey Stupid with stupid spelled incorrectly. Ha, ha, ha. Too stupid to spell stupid. Ha, ha. And then he did The Last Temptation. Looks a little bit more serious than the hair metal. When you see this, the hair metal era is over. And instead of having like Nikki Sixx and Slash on his album like the previous one, now he's writing songs with Chris Cornell. Makes sense. Look at this. Look at the cover inside. Dark colors and darker themes. You got a song called Unholy War, Stolen Prayer. So yes, darker album. I skipped all the hair metal ones back in the day, but when I saw that in the record store, I said, okay, he might be back on track. I'm buying it.
I don't know what you gentlemen think, but I think this album cover is absolutely horrible. We should do a show on album covers that are absolutely horrid, because who put this together? It's a mess.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Kind of a mess, but
it's a mess.
Also, Jamie, like a big signal is the whole Constrictor, Raise Your Fist and Yell from the Blackout period, right? The change in the album covers.
Yeah.
Now he's Slasher Alice Cooper, right?
Yeah.
Slasher film guy. So, okay, so we've got a mention for Heart. We've got Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. I don't know if I agree with that one. Carcass, Heartwork. Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. I've seen that here a couple of times. Someone mentioned Thin Lizzy, Bad Reputation. I thought, absolutely not. But then it does signal change in that there's only 3 guys on the cover. But ironically, they changed back, even before the album cover is done kind of thing. So it's not really signaling change. Status Quo, just supposing Never Too Late. I don't know if I'd agree with that one either. I don't know if people are really still catching on to this in a big way. Right?
I don't think
Small
so.
Faces, Ogden's Not Gone Flakes. We got to mention for. So Iron Maiden, X Factor. I don't know if that's signaling change either, other than it's not being illustration at that point. So that in itself is, I guess, a symbol of something maybe. But anyways, Peter, take it away.
Right.
All right. Now for something completely different. Australia's national treasure, Kylie Minogue. So when Kylie first came out, Kylie's self-titled debut, she was like the girl next door. She starts dating Michael Hutchins from INXS, and you get that. So
Wow.
it's very much a confident, sexy, on the prowl sort of album cover, and it's a change in direction from what was just bubblegum pop into something that was kind of mature in the Madonna territory. So that's Kylie Minogue. Next one I'm going to do is Duran Duran Notorious. So you had the Duran Duran where they're wearing the puffy shirts, they're all new romantic, appealing to the teenage crowd. Great albums. But now they get Nile Rodgers. And there was a little genre of music in the mid-'80s, which I call white soul funk. You had artists like Steve Winwood, Robert Palmer, and they were doing music that you probably imagine stockbrokers would be playing at cocktail parties, or that character out of American Psycho would be analyzing. So Duran Duran Notorious, it's just white soul funk. It's a change of direction, and you can see, like, with the black and white and the very serious looks, they are changing their direction, and they're appealing to that adult that bass. Great album, but definitely a change in sound from what was synth pop into Nile Rodgers style funk. So great album. Next one, Depeche Mode. So if you're going to announce there's going to be a change coming, whether it's on the album or maybe the album after, why don't you just put a bugle? Why don't you put loudspeakers? I think that really sort of is, announces that, hey, there's going to be something happening. This album has a bit of a hint what was coming soon in Violator, where it was going to go darker and get more kind of into the rock alternative. But there's enough hints, from the album cover and what's the sound within this album to note that Depeche Mode were changing from what was, again, kind of a very... Originally, they were like a, synth pop into something really dark, electro, industrial. And that's Depeche Mode music for the masses.
Nice.
So there you go. That's my
Super.
picks.
Awesome.
Okay. Guys, I'm going to go through all the rest of mine because I've got I got to be out of here by 8 to go on Guitar Hack. We're talking
All right.
to Motorhead.
Do
So next one I'm doing is Moonspell, because we don't really talk about this band very much on here. I remember it back in the Brave Words days. We talked to these guys all the time. I interviewed Fernando many times, but Irreligious, I wanted to pick them because there's just this whole idea of a lot of these bands, a little bit like the Death situation, where you're leaving the whole, the black metal look, the illustration and that sort of logo thing. And these bands started to get a little, Tiamat is kind of the same sort of situation. Even Anthrax for that matter. All the album covers started getting a little artier. There's your Sin Pecado, and there's your Darkness and Hope. So they simplified, they arted it up, kind of thing, as you move away from your black metal roots. So that's your Moonspell, basically Portugal's most famous band, I would imagine, right? Big black metal band. And then I went with the Damned with Phantasmagoria. Phantasmic album here. This is a very cool album, but they definitely were there kind of almost inventing the whole goth thing, or being one of the big bands in it, moving towards it. I mean, before you had Strawberries, which I suppose doesn't really signal much of anything, but Yeah, at this stage, they're moving into their shiny goth period. There are some lineup changes, very, very well produced. I mean, look at the back. The back is incredibly goth looking. And then the next album, they still look pretty goth, but anything doesn't really look particularly goth. But this is very, very just an amazing, amazing album cover. And then next, I've got David Bowie. And I wasn't sure about this one because you see him sort of transform the look in that many times over the years, but you go from Scary Monsters over to Let's Dance, and you get this this new version with the new haircut, with the dyed sort of reddish blonde thing there. You don't see the suit here, but you know he's moved into the suits. But all of this, all of this color scheme and type style scheme tells you he's moving into the 80s from the 70s. And then the other albums are very much like that as well. Never Let Me Down, You Down, Tonight. They're kind of that way as well. But yeah, just a very sort of 80s look to this, and he's moving to that brighter, newer sound. Then we've got Voivod, the situation where Michelle, the drummer, Michelle Langevin, does all the artwork. I've just pulled out these to show sort of the 90s era, the Eric Forrest era of the band, Toronto guy. Good albums. People really should get into those. But yeah, so you get into the Jason Newsted era, and you've got the die cutting, the new, more modern logo, the simplified look. This is a digipack, gatefold. You got an artistic band shot on the back. So the idea here is Jay Sonic has joined the band, big famous Metallica member. We've got a real shot at being a big band here. For some reason, it didn't work out, even though they did simplify and change their sound. They definitely changed and got much more streamlined, very sober production values. Infini, same kind of thing. Couture's kind of a weird album cover on that, but yeah, they're using that newer Voivod logo. So yeah, that definitely signaled the change there, just in the production qualities of these album covers. My next one is Warrant, where you go from where you go to Dog Eat Dog from Cherry Pie. But the fact of the matter is, so they're heavying up their sound. They're getting a little more serious, a little more ambitious. It's a try harder late period. They're late anyways to the game, but it's a late period hair metal band. But fact of the matter is, Dog Eat Dog doesn't look a heck of a lot more serious. I mean, this was a pretty artistic album cover for the first one, right? But yeah, here they are, definitely looking a little meaner, that whole grim image. And then later on, I thought I'd bring these out just to show the the moving into the grunge era thing. So you can line this up with your there's a bunch of hair metal bands that do this, the psychedelic murky sort of look thing. So that's your Warrant. Kind of a similar thing is the Warrior Soul situation, where this is a band that goes from as we move towards Chill Pill there, you've got this very sort of iconic Warrior Soul look. This band always kind of frustrated me, that I love the whole frontman and the lyrical and the look idea, but I found the production and even the riffs and the music writing a little bit on the dull end. You wanted to like this band more, but it just wasn't that great. But yeah, the earlier ones had this iconic look like that. Even that one still has a text, although they're coming onto the cover. But when you get to Chill Phil, Corey there is, he's looking like a psychedelic hippie. He's looking like Dana Strum was looking on that Slaughter album, right? But it's called Chill Pill. They've ditched the old look for the type style. Chill Pill is very psychedelic. He's looking very psychedelic, and they do change their sound, and they kind of loosen up and get that way. And there's what he looks like on the back. And my last one is, this is a short catalog, Roger Waters. It's not that it's a change and he sticks to it, but as you get to Radio Chaos, you definitely have a much more electronic synthesizer computery album, and he's showing that on the cover. Whereas Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking could have been a Pink Floyd album cover pretty easily. It's got the Stedman look and stuff to it. So this is more traditional, closer to a Pink Floyd album. But this is definitely not that big change there. That's all my picks. Let's just see what else we've got here in the comments. Anything new come up here? Let's see if people have caught on here. Faster Pussycat, Cat and the Glory Hole album with special guitar fill-ins. That's a major. Let's see, Metallica Black album, Fleetwood Mac Tusk. Yeah, Tusk, I suppose, is a little more obscure looking, right? Not so straightforward. Totally agree about Voivod, says Pete Brown. Let's see, who's the Crimson dude you speak of? David Bowie could throw a dart. Yeah, it's true. You kind of could throw a dart. You know, there's various different album covers that would fit. King Crimson Discipline, that's a good one. Definitely shows a big change, although their album covers are all over the place, but you did expect something different. Depeche Mode Purple, let's see, Doors, Other Voices. Yeah, I think the guys are on the cover, so there's a big change there. Somebody's missing, right? Alice in Chains, Dirt. I don't know if I agree with that one too much. Pearl Jam, Vitalogy. Yeah, you know, grunge album covers, I don't think there's much, you know, they're so obscure and artistic anyways that I don't think you really notice. They're inscrutable is what they are, right? So anyways, there you go. Take it over.
All right.
Take it away, Grant.
Okay. So my next choice. Well, this is an interesting choice because when this album originally came out, it was just another record. But I'm going to go with Leonard Skinner's Street Survivors. Once this record came out, no one thought about it. But 3 days later, what was it? 3 days or 4 days later, they had the plane crash. And this album, we expected something else. Think about it. We think about Leonard Skinner burning up in this crash. My God, and MCA rushed a new album cover out with the black background. So this kind of changed everybody's perception. Everybody looks at this record and you think, oh, well, this is the end of Leonard Skinner. So that's my choice. It's not very uplifting, everybody, but still, you cannot not look at this album cover and think that. The other choice I've got, I'm going to go with Rolling Stones, their Satanic Majesty's Request. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're going back to the 60s again. There's a lot of change in the 60s. And this, when I see this, and everybody's talked about the Stones, how they've always followed the Beatles. Well, if I'll be damned, if this doesn't really say, hey, this is a Sgt. Pepper ripoff, I don't know what is. And I can't remember exactly how long this came out afterwards, but like October, I think Pepper came out in June. This is roughly the time period, but my God, for God's sakes. I have no problem with this record, but it does signal that change that, yeah, we're psychedelic too. Yeah, we're following the Beatles, but I don't think they intended to do that, but this is the way I look at it. Number 6. God darn, I'll tell you, the mid-60s was exciting. The Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, 1968. This is where they turned country. They got Graham Parsons in the band. He turned the Byrds around, and they were doing country, for God's sakes. And the previous record, you would not have thought that they would have went to this level. You know, they didn't sell as many records when they did this, but still, this totally turns the Byrds around. I think from this point on, they kind of had that country tinge. Yeah, you know, back in Younger and Yesterday, they had tinges of country, but not like this. This is full blown. In fact, they played in the Grand Ole Opry, and people just were like, oh my God, no. They didn't dig it. But this signified a big change in the Byrds. So there you go. Grant in the 60s. There you go.
Nice. Well, listen, guys, I'm going to have to head out. Oh, geez, we lost someone else almost.
Wait a minhe'd where'd he go?
He's
there he is.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry,
Did I
guys.
hit
I'm gonna have to head out,
Okay.
and I'm
We
going
will
on
carry
Guitar Hack
on.
right now. So yes, I'm leaving you guys. You guys are gonna do a good job and finish up, and I'll watch the rest when this thing goes live. So talk to you guys later.
All right.
So
See
there
you.
you go. Let's see if there's anything in the chat real quick. Oh, BM Bolt just listened to that Byrds album. It is total country, but but this is the record that started that whole country rock thing. Without this record, we wouldn't have the Eagles. You wouldn't have fill in the blank. I'm just saying. It's not country. It's cosmic American music. Of course it is. Yeah, we mentioned Yes already. Yes, Robin 73. Yes, Fragile. Now, I don't
Fragile?
really hear that because it just seems like a continuation of what came before, but that's all right. It's all good. Primal Scream. Well, I've never heard that one. All right,
Great
let's
album.
go to Johnny Cash American Recordings. Very well, yeah, it's very dope.
No, that's a pretty good one because those covers do look like they sound.
The cover looks the way they sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Todd Evans, let's throw it over to you.
All right. So my next one is Chicago 16. So what's happening here? Okay, so they've got dumped by their record label. They got dumped by Columbia. They got a new guy. They're not even Bill Champlin. And I'm going to put his picture on the cover. But what's happening here? It's like Chicago in like a circuit board. What's happening to them? Okay, well, drum machines, synth bass, very electronic sound, very non-organic sound. I would suggest that this probably should have been the cover because people are used to seeing, the big cover. This is a great album. Topic for another show. But yeah, Chicago 16 gets kind of techie, and that cover kind of shows you that. Next one I'm going to do is, this one's a little different because we're going to go back to the way we sounded and looked before. So what does this look like? Kind of looks like this. Kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
Mhm.
With the same
Continuation.
logo. I'm
Yeah.
having trouble doing this with two hands. But so what's happening with Toto is, and this is just my theory, but they got rid of Bobby Kimball and they got Fergie Friedrichsen. They made this album, kind of a harder edged album, and it kind of has a weird, I guess, kind of dumb cover depending on how you look at it. But it looks like a heavier album. And then you've got this album. They got Joseph Williams. This album is kind of a impressionistic cover. This is an album that's got lots of R&B influence on it, and it's got Miles Davis plays on it. So I think what Toto's doing here is they're saying, we're going to just go back to being Toto. This is the second album with Joe Williams. We're going to go back to being what we were when we made this. Hopefully we'll be somewhere near as successful as when we made Toto 4. And unfortunately, I think the guys got derailed. Joe Williams started having drug problems, and they had to let him go and get yet another singer. Then they had to they had to do a couple albums where Steve Lukather was the singer, and they were just a quartet. So they went through a lot of rough times. But I think when they did this, they intended to go back to being consistent and more the band they were when they made Toto 4.
Todd,
So
I'm just curious. I don't want to interrupt, but why did Bobby Kimball quit? Does anybody know? What was the reason behind it?
I used to know this, and I don't. Does anybody else know? I think he was having some trouble hitting the notes. But Peter,
vocal problems.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vocal
All
problems.
right.
Apparently, in the studio, he couldn't hit the high notes. He struggled. In fact, a lot of their singers struggled. They said that the only one that was actually good in the studio was Williams.
Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
That's
Well,
all
there
according
you
to
go.
Lucifer's book.
And that's why.
Gospel according to
There you
Lucifer.
go.
Yeah, that's why Fergie Friedrichsen was let go too. I believe. Is that right?
He's a great singer on
He
that.
is.
That's a cracking
Yeah.
album, but
is.
live he just couldn't handle it. He couldn't do it. They had to keep on bringing it down
Yeah.
a couple of tones.
And who's that guy after that they had for a minute? Jean Michel Byron, is that the right name? Yeah. They just
South African singer.
They just plain
Yeah.
didn't like him. So,
No, they didn't.
It is what
anyway,
it is.
they went through a rough patch, and but I think they meant to go back to basics with that album. My
All right,
next
Tom.
one is, I'm trying to get through this fast because we're
No, you're all right. You might as well do your number 10 too, and we'll just.
well, yeah, I'm gonna finish. With Rush, you can do a couple of these. I think there are a couple that fit. This one kind of tells you that they're going into the 80s with a slightly more streamlined approach. The two covers before this, Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings, are kind of fantasy oriented. And this one is not that. and even the the back cover and the way everything is designed. I mean, these pictures. I think this is a brilliantly designed album, by the way.
I do too.
But-
I think that's some Hughes' best work.
But you see their names and the billboards and the signs back there, which is kind of humorous, and it's kind of Rush is getting a little bit lighter, maybe, and definitely more straightforward in their approach. And my last one, Steven Wilson, The Future Bites. Now you could argue with me and say, well, the album before that is just a big Steven Wilson head too, but
Wow.
but and this one does go in a more I don't want to say pop direction because I don't think that's really accurate, but a lot of people say that. But this one right here, you can sort of look at this and you can sort of look at the way it looks on the back and say, okay, well, something even more stripped down is happening here. And this album has some EDM on it. It's got a lot of electronic elements. Elton John appears on this album on the song A Personal Shopper, but he doesn't sing or play the piano. He just lists things that you might shop for, like status items, like deluxe CD box set, and all this stuff. So,
That's how I say deluxe box set now, the way
I know.
on that album. I can't help it.
But this is an album that reveals a lot of depth. If you don't get mad when you hear it and think, okay, well, this really isn't a prog album, and then you really listen to it. I mean, that song, Personal Shopper, there's a part in the middle of it that sounds like Wish You Were Here or Pink Floyd, like almost exactly. And I mean, there's a lot in this album, but you've got to, on the surface, it's very different. And I think when you look at this, you think, okay, well, he's done something different here on purpose.
All right, cool.
I like
Thanks,
that album.
Todd Evans. That's good.
Yeah, me too.
I don't like the new one.
Oh, really? I do. But another show.
That's another show, gentlemen. All right, Jamie Laszlo, what's your next? I guess your next four. I guess.
My next four. All right. ZZ Top Afterburner. I'm going with this one because before this album, you got this. And I think most ZZ Top fans were still on board when this came out. They're like, yeah, it's fun, but maybe it's time, boys, to get back to basics. And when this came out and they saw the cover, they all went, oh, shit. Because this is just taking this sound and going way further. How further? Well, the car is now a spaceship, and we're going into space. You can't go further than that. So, yeah, they took the sound and went even further with it. And a lot of people weren't happy. Me, I think it's a great party record.
All right.
And then after that, I'm going with Jethro Tull, A. Because this is the thing in the 80s. When you saw an album cover, I could have went with Neil Young Trans as well. When you see an album cover that's a little sci-fi, so you got Ian Anderson and the boys all dressed in unison, like a uniform in white. You got a little A on there, almost like a little Star Trek-y thing, and there's a big A in the sky, and they're like, oh, what's that? I don't know. It's like the bat signal or something. But it just signals, what did this signal in the 80s? More keyboards. Sci-fi covers meant more keyboards, and that's exactly what you get on this album. Loads and loads of more lush-like keyboards.
When that album came out, people were so unkind to it, and the reviews made it sound like you expected it to sound like a Donna Summer record or something. Right. It really isn't that much of a departure.
They didn't know Under Wraps was coming.
But yeah, exactly. It's not that much of a departure, but people were talking like
at the time,
sacrilege.
Well, yeah, I know we're on a tangent, but I can't help but ask this. But how do you think this album is aged?
Well,
do you think it's much more? It's better received now than when it was back in the day.
Yeah, there's a whole box set that came out, and it sold well as the Jethro Tull box set would sell. $50, and people bought it up. I think people like it now. It's
Jamie Laszlo, there was in Lewis Center, there was that A box set sitting there for a month and a half. I didn't buy it.
Oh, really?
It was sitting there. You know where I'm talking about, at Half Price Books. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is that where you got it?
No, I got mine on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. It sat there. Someone bought it.
Next, I'm going with Living Color. Because you had the first albums. What's your favorite color, baby? Living color. And then, what the hell is that? Looks like something out of the Saw movie.
S&M, baby.
Oh
Something.
my
I'm not sure what's
God.
going on there.
And even the cassette looks worse. And to make it, the picture is black and white, but they had to make the plastic red just to make it all look more depressing and dark. And instead of hearing, "What's your favorite color, baby?" the very first lyrics is, "What is the point of suffering? What is the purpose of joy?" Like, oh my God, guys, relax. This has a very big cult following, Stain.
Right.
But you're getting something darker, more depressing, probably heavier, and that's what you get. My next choice, I don't own because it's a piece of crap album, and that is Rock and Roll Strategy by 38 Special. And right away, there's a difference because no more is it .38 Special, named after a gun, because that's just a little too Southern rock for us now. Now we're going to spell it out. 38 Special. What does it mean now? Now without the .38? We don't know. Maybe it's something you order off of a Chinese menu. She'll take the 23 Special. You want the 13 Special? I'll take the 38 Special. Who knows? But then you got the picture. It's all like blue and you just know it's not going to rock. And it's got the worst their highest charting single is on there. What's it called? Second Chance. And I don't know about you guys, but when that came out, we all hated it. We thought it was terrible.
I don't mind it so much, but it's
So-
not an original member, correct? Someone left.
Yes.
Didn't Don Barnes leave?
Don Barnes left, and then Max Carl came in, and he wrote and sang on Second Chance. It doesn't sound like 38 Special, and it just looks like, you know what that looks like? It has the color scheme of a Peter Cetera solo record.
All right, Todd, calm down. It'll be okay. It's
I'm sitting
okay.
on my hands.
He's sitting on his hands. But it does kind of look like that. And I think probably I'm not even sure if I've heard this whole record, but I think obviously Jamie's heard this record. I think it probably sounds like the cover.
Don Barnes used to come into the record store that I worked at in suburban Atlanta and buy records. And when this album was released, I remember hearing being at work with my coworkers and reading a Rolling Stone or something, and hearing them say a quote, something like, "Well, we're just going in a different direction." And I remember my buddy said, "Yeah, they were tired of having all those hits." And then they had one really big hit, and then that was it.
Last hit.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, the guy that made all the hits was
And
gone.
I love 38 Special. I love 38 Special, but this is, not good 38 Special. All right, Jamie, that is awesome. Thanks so much. All right, Peter Kerr, let's throw it over to you.
Okay. Madness, the zany ska band from the UK. And I'm talking about their album, Keep Moving.
Of course, I can't find it, but I'll have it up here in a minute, for God's sakes. Keep going.
Right, so this represents a bit of a change in sound for them, because previously they were all very much a little bit of reggae, bit of ska, very zany, and this album just was where they moved into blue-white soul. And you can see that's all the band members. They're sort of in a running race, but they look like they're all tripping over each other. And you can see, comparing it to the other album covers, it just shows that this band was definitely changing on this album.
Yeah.
Right. So next one I'm going to cover is Police, Ghosts in the Machine. So out of the whole Police catalogue, this is the one that screams change, because it's the one that, well, for starters, it's not French. Secondly, it hasn't got the Police band members. Does any of the folks on this call know what that actually represents?
I thought it was supposed to be the three members somehow.
It's supposed to be them.
It's the digital representation of the three members with their haircuts. So apparently that's Sting in the middle with his haircut, and you've got the other members. But you just look at this album cover, it's completely an outrider from all of their discography, and very experimental. And it was just a sign that things were never going to quite be the same. And that's my pick for this exercise, Ghost in the Machine. All right, Great White, Psycho City. So the previous Great White albums always had a chick on the cover, kind of very salacious, a lot of double entendres. This one, just to me, sounds like this is a band in the early 90s, 1992, where the winds have changed and we have to change our sound. And basically, like previously, if this was done 5 years ago, they would be doing a photo of the Hilton, but now they're doing some cheap motel, and things are not quite the same. So the album after Sail Away is when they went kind of acoustic, and it was very laid back and, wasn't as metally as this album. But this is an album that you look at the cover and it signifies that there's going to be change either on this album or it's afoot. And it's kind of a little bit sleazy, a little bit grim for a band like Great White.
Peter, I hate to interrupt, but I can't help myself. This came out in 92. And until you presented this, until we did this episode, I had never seen this record in my life. I have never seen it in the used bins pop up. Obviously at this point, Great White, it's not Nirvana. They're totally in the wrong era. But I swear to God, I looked at this cover and I'm going, wow, I've never seen that before.
I have it on cassette.
Well, of course, Jamie, you've got everything on cassette.
It got certified tin. So
you're right. So I've never seen it. Too. It's on Capitol. Yeah, sure. Capitol was hoping. Oh my God! I know we're in the grunge.
Maybe
era,
this one.
Maybe this will do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, you can't even tell it's Great White, isn't it? It's so stylistically different because they have this theme of fishing hooks and sharks and blondes in bikinis, and this one is just, we're in a sleazy motel now.
Yeah.
So, last one is the famous Fleetwood Mac one. This is like signifies the start of the Buckingham Nicks era, and it's kind of very sort of suavo, aristocratic. I need no say no more. If you compare it to the earlier album covers with the blue, they're all these quirky little blues covers. No, this is completely different, and this is just how things became very corporate and big and aristocratic. Fleetwood Mac.
There you go.
And that's my choices. I'm done.
All right. Minister of Darkness, Great White, Good Hooks, Rocks. I don't have any issue with Great White, but by 1992 they were off the map.
Hook is another album by Great White.
It is? Well, that tells you what I know. Let's see what else. Genesis, Invisible Touch. I don't know, Brian. Is it? I don't know. Police, Zenyatta Mandata.
It just looks like a Police album.
Still got the same logo.
Yeah, Fiona Apple, their Idler Wheel. I know Fiona Apple, but I've never heard this record. I couldn't tell you. Split Ends, True Colors.
I think this is a good one. Yeah, I think that's a good example.
Yeah, but wasn't there an album? Was it the album after this or before this that was very similar?
The one after it, Wayada, is very similar. Right. Yeah.
Neil Young, Everybody's Rockin'.
It's going to be a 50s rock and roll type style thing.
True. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, we lost Peter Kerr. Well, it's up to us, gentlemen. We're gonna.
It's like
BM Bolt. A blows away under wraps. I don't know.
This episode is like 10 Little Indians.
Kinda. People are dropping off, but we still have people. 78 people are still here. Thanks everybody for sticking around. So I'm gonna finish up with my my picks real quick, and we'll get out of here. I know everybody has things to do, but in the Contrarians, it's all about the discussion. So, all right, kids, here we go. My picks, my last ones. Let me scroll up to the top. All right, well, now I'm going to go with the Beach Boys. I know I'm on this 60s kick, But I'm going to go with, I don't want to pick that one yet. Beach Boys, Smiley Smile. Now, there was a show the other day, Rand Kelly brought up the Smile album, which came out in 2012. But if anybody knows Pet Sounds and how iconic it was, every Beach Boys album up until this time had the Beach Boys on the cover. This is psychedelic. There's nothing commercial about this record at all. In fact, it probably alienated the whole Beach Boys crowd by 1967. But if you think about it, by 67, music had changed. Beach Boys weren't, hip and cool. But this record totally is a change. The Beach Boys also had another change in 1970 with Sunflower. They signed to Reprise. They weren't on Capitol anymore. But this record signaled, to me, this was much more like Pet Sounds in that vein. But you've got a whole rebirth. You've got the whole band and Bruce Johnston on the cover. Everybody's got their kids. It just sounds like, to me, when I look at it, oh, well, everybody's breeding a lot for one. But it's a rebirth. It's a start over. New label, similar sound, but nothing sounded like Pet Sounds because it's a new era. Okay.
What is that Beach Boys album cover where it's really dark and the guy's on the horse and the horse
Surf's Up from 1971.
Yeah, it looks like a proto
came out after that
album cover.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like a heavy metal album from 1970.
Yeah. Surf's Up.
Okay.
It's no Sunflower, ladies and gentlemen, but it's okay. My next one, I'm going to go with if anybody follows this damn channel, it all comes back to Cheap Trick. So I'm doing Cheap Trick, the Red Ant album from 1997. This signifies a big change. For one, they're off Epic. They're free. They can do what they want to do. Because if you know anything about Cheap Trick, Epic was dictating what they were practically doing. More hits, boys. More hits. But the Red Ant album, they were free. They could do what they wanted to do. And the album cover signifies, for one, a rebirth like Beach Boys Sunflower. You've got, there's no band members on the front, but look, you've got Rick Nielsen and Bunny Carlos on the front, pretty much. And if you flip on the rear, you've got Robin Zander and Tom Peterson. It's that whole theme that Epic started back with In Color. So it continues on with that. Yeah, like Brain Problem, the album with the flame on it. Help me.
Lap of Luxury.
Lap of Luxury. They did the same kind of thing. But this totally signals a new era. So I'm going with that. Number 10, I'm going with the Knack Zoom. The Knack had not been around for a while, but with Zoom, they had a rebirth. They had Terry Bozzio playing drums. He's on the cover. But then everybody's smiling. It was not that era where Round Trip, where everybody was disgusted and kind of sad, even though that's a great album. But this album continues on where, I'd say where the first album left off. It's a perfect segue, but it's kind of a rebirth. They ended up changing this album cover later, but it is what it is. So there you go. My number 10 is the Knack Zoom. It's probably... everybody's probably in a trauma or, I'm talking about all this 60s stuff and power pop, and everybody's probably in a fetal position at this point.
I'm going to make you a mix CD, and all the bands on that CD is going to be from the last 8 years.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Hey Grant, more 70s Beach Boys. Well, we do a Beach Boys show on my channel. We're getting ready to do Beach Boys Party with Davey Gallagher and Ryan Gavalier. So stay tuned. Check that out over there.
Hey, I think Terry may have the comments. Terry
Okay,
Walker.
Spinal Tap, Smell the Glove, Big Chains. Yes. Oh my God. That might be the quote of the night. I think we might give you the award.
Yep.
You're not going to win anything, but we will give you props. Thanks, Mike. Good show. We love everybody's picks. 2, Rob Halford album with Reznor. King Crimson Thrack. Yeah, there's another change. Beatles Revolver. I think there's probably
Rubber
You're-
Soul, I would go with.
I would say Rubber Soul because
And
that
then it goes from there. Slowly
I would say
changes
that.
from there.
So Jerry, I appreciate your thoughts on this, but we're giving you I think Rubber Soul. The Called Electric. I don't know. Jamie Laszlo, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, the font, or I'm sorry, someone said that he hates it when I say font. Letter, what did he tell me
It's
to
a
say?
font.
Oh, I know. He wanted me to say something else.
Bastards. Okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
I say
it
font all
screams
the
a little
time.
bit more rock and roll, less, you know.
Is it a departure? Is it
Yeah,
signal a
they
change?
sound a little bit more like AC/DC on that album than they do on the previous albums.
You're welcome, Terry. You win. Broken Hearts are for Bozio. Oh my goodness. Buzzcock's all set. Oh, wait a minute. Mike's got spins. I have strummed that 5-neck guitar. Rick holds it out for the audience to touch sometimes during Dream Police. Did you strum the orange one? Which one did you strum? You didn't strum Uncle Dick, did you? I'm just saying. All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody that appeared in the chat. We tried to get to all your comments.
No one mentioned the Mr. Big album, the one we used on the damn thumbnail.
No one mentioned
Oh,
it.
no one mentioned that. That's right.
I don't know. It is
I
what
never
it
heard
is. But I do want to thank Todd Evans, Jamie Laszlo, Peter Kerr. Of course, Martin was here, but he's gone. But what a great conversation, for God's sake. So I think this probably agreed, brother. Long day. Hell, I never thought Revolver came out before Rubber Soul. Jerry, for God's sakes. We expected more from you, but it's all right. We appreciate everybody showing up. We will be back next week.
And we know what we're doing, right?
Jamie, I can't come up with it. Do you know what we're doing? Can you address the masses what we're doing?
We did albums that look alike, the front covers.
Right.
Now we're doing the back covers, doppelgangers, which I'm struggling with.
I'm struggling too.
Well,
I haven't even
found a
started with.
doozy today. I found one that just excites me, and I'm ready to now. That's going to be like my mojo. That one to start me to find better ones, because I got one great one and 9 sucky ones.
All right, that's what it. Well, it's hard as we keep doing these shows. Well, some of these shows are hard to do, and I think this show it took a lot of people to kind of wind up to get into it. Normally we have these comments that we just can't even keep up. Tonight was a little bit more manageable. But anyway, thanks everybody in the chat. We couldn't do this without you. If you like this content, we do have a Patreon you could join. Glad to have you. We do like donations. Feel free to give us a donation, for God's sake.
And do your homework before next week. Now that you know the subject.
That's
Go
right.
look at some back album covers, pair some up that look alike, and then come back next week and tell
That's
us what you
right.
found.
Back cover doppelgangers. We need to have your homework. We want to hear from you. We also have a Ko-fi account. We'd love a pint or a cup of coffee, for God's sakes. But anyway, we appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you. So we will see you next week. Same time, same channel. All right, everybody. Good night, and we will see you.
Later.
Night.